Hi everyone, it's Chris and welcome back to another video. Thank you for joining me, and thank you to everybody who takes the time to watch these videos, to like and subscribe and leave comments. So if you get value from the channel, give it a thumbs up or consider subscribing. So thank you very much. Now, recently I posted two videos about my favourite opening tracks. One was from new wave and punk albums and the other one from hard rock albums. So today I thought I'd share with you my favourite closing tracks to albums. I'm going to stick solely to hard rock for this particular video. It's not that other genres don't do it, I just think hard rock does it better. So other genres, examples are things like Another Star from Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder, one of my favourite Stevie Wonder songs and a brilliant way to finish that album, as is the title track from Purple Rain by Prince, which has some incredible guitar work from somebody who really knew his way around a guitar. I think Torn Curtain is a really good way to finish Marquee Moon. That's a really good example of a good closing track. I've always liked EMI from the Pistols album, Never Mind the Bollocks, with the raspberry from Johnny Rotten at the end of it. And of course, from the debut from the Ramones, Today Your Love, Tomorrow the World is a great way to finish. But what I've got for you today are 30 songs that close albums from 30 different albums from 30 different artists. So tell me what you think in the comments below. At number 30, the closing track from Dream Police by Cheap Trick, probably my favourite Cheap Trick studio album, this one. And it closes with a real slow burner called Need Your Love, which has got a couple of AC/DC kind of chords in it. But it's a brilliant track. It's slow burning, speeds up. It's a fantastic way to finish what is a great album. At number 29, Rockin' in the Free World, that closes off the album Freedom by Neil Young. His heaviest track, I think, and a really good way to finish that album. Love that song. At 28, a song that might surprise you because it's not necessarily hard rock genre, but it's a great hard rock song. This is Eddie and the Hot Rods and the album Life on the Line. This is the album that features Do Anything You Want to Do, which they released under the name of The Rods. The closing track is a 8-9 minute epic called The Beginning of the End, which is a really good hard rock song. So if you've not heard it, stream it, it's great. At number 27, top 10 song from Rory Gallagher for me. This is from the album Juice, his second or third solo album, and the song is called Crest of a Wave. Brilliant way to finish that album. As is the closing track from Never Turn Your Back on a Friend by Budgie, and the song is truly epic. It's called Parents. Brilliant way to finish what is probably my favourite Budgie album. This is the one with Baby Please Don't Go, their version of that, Bread Fan, and two songs that are quintessential Budgie in terms of humorous titles, In the Grip of a Tire Fitter's Hand and You're the Best Thing Since Powdered Milk. But the closer, Parents, absolutely epic. Number 25, Astra Wally by Rose Tattoo from Rock and Roll Outlaws from 1981. Australian hard rock band, utterly exhausting, Astra Wally. You couldn't have that anywhere else on the album because it's completely exhausting. Listen, it's brilliant. Number 24, Road Racing by Riot from the album Narita. Riot were a New York band, purveyors of crap covers with an awful mascot, but Road Racing is a truly tremendous hard rock song and a really good way to finish what is a great album from Riot. At number 23, this is UFO's Lights Out, and it finishes on a real epic track called Love to Love. I think the version on Strangers in the Night, the 79 live album, is better, but it's a brilliant version of it. This is the original studio. So that's Love to Love by UFO. Gorgeous guitar tone from Michael Schenker, but the highlight for me on that track is the singing of Phil Mogg, who's one of the most underrated hard rock vocalists ever. Absolutely brilliant. At number 22, epic Southern rock from the Outlaws, their debut album, and the track on here is Green Grass and High Tides with that extended guitar solo at the end, as all Southern bands seem to do. Really good album, great way to close it. It could only ever fit at the end of the album, that song, Green Grass and High Tides. At number 21, the closing track from the debut from the Michael Schenker Group. So this has got several good tracks on it, Cry for Nations, Armed and Ready, Victim of Illusion. But the title, the last track rather, is a song called Lost Horizons, which is truly epic and probably the highlight of the album and a brilliant way to finish his debut album. At number 20, this is Wheels of Steel by Saxon, and this album is brilliantly bookended by two very similar songs. The opening track, which featured in my hard rock openers actually, is Motorcycle Man, but it closes with Machine Gun, which is just a fantastic way to finish what is a really good album from Saxon from 81? At number 19, Now, I nearly went with a track from Argos by Wishbone Ash. I nearly went with Throw Down Your Sword, which is a great way to finish that album, their classic album. But this is their debut album, and the closing track is called Phoenix, which is a great song, and it has that dual guitar thing that Wishbone Ash became famous for and were very influential. Certainly a number of bands tried to, Thin Lizzy, for example, came along later with that dual guitar, but this lot started it, certainly in the UK. The Allman Brothers probably were before them over in the States, but this is a great debut from Wishbone Ash, and Phoenix is a tremendous song to close the album. Next up is a band who I think were quite influenced by that dual guitar sound of Wishbone Ash, and it's Def Leppard. This is their debut, On Through the Night. So they were very much part, although they don't admit it, a part of the new wave of British heavy metal. And they brought out a single called Get Your Rocks Off. Well, the A-side was Get Your Rocks Off and Ride Into the Sun, and the B-side was called The Overture, which is probably my favourite song by Def Leppard. And that's re-recorded on this album, but it closes this album, and it's a tremendous way to finish the album. This is from 1981, I think, the next album, and it's Frank Marino from the album The Power of Rock and Roll. So solo album is usually associated with a band called Mahogany Rush. So this album came out on CBS in 1981, and the track that closes it has got some gorgeous guitar work on it. It's called Ain't Dead Yet. I think Frank Marino is an incredibly underrated guitarist. He's absolutely brilliant. He used to be a kind of a little bit, or seen as a Jimi Hendrix copyist, but certainly in the 80s he became a superb hard rock guitarist, and this is a really good example of that. Ain't Dead Yet, the closer, brilliant. At number 16 is Iron Maiden. Now, I nearly went with the track Iron Maiden from their debut, Iron Maiden. The Paul Di'Anno sadly passed away, but the Paul Di'Anno version. But in the end, I went with the closing track from the first album to feature Bruce Dickinson, A Number of the Beast. And the closing track is one of their classics. It's called Hallowed Be Thy Name, which is a fantastic way to finish what is a really good debut that featured Bruce Dickinson. Next up is a band I have to include somewhere. I nearly went with Bring It On Home from Led Zepp 2. I nearly went with How Many More Times from Led Zepp 1. But in the end, I've got to go with When the Levee Breaks from 4. Now, as a kid, I very rarely got to side 2. Side 1 has 4 tracks on it. 3 of them are Black Dog, Rock and Roll, and Stairway to Heaven. I always thought Stairway to Heaven would be the brilliant closer. I very rarely, as I said, as a kid, got to side 2. But When the Levee Breaks, with that amazing, loud, in-your-face drum sound of John Bonham and a quirky little harmonica as well. But it's a truly brilliant way an epic way to finish. Led Zepp 4. Number 15, gone with Soul Sacrifice by Santana, a song that was made famous really at the Woodstock movie, but featured on their debut album from 1969, and a brilliant song it is. The rhythms on that are fantastic. The guitar work is incredible. Great stuff. At number 13, you might expect to see this band a little bit higher up. It's Deep Purple and Hard Loving Man from their fourth album, the first album to feature Roger Glover and Ian Gillan. But it's the track that closes this called Hard Loving Man, with its kind of galloping riff, which I'm sure would have influenced bands like Iron Maiden. But a great song. But I think Deep Purple were, with the exception of things like maybe Soldier of Fortune from Stormbringer or Space Trucking from Machine Head, I think generally their best songs they kept for the track 1, side 1 and track 1, side 2 generally. But Hard Loving Man that closes this album, fantastic stuff. At number 12, I've gone with a song from the White Album by Diamond Head. Now, I always thought that Am I Evil would have been a much better closer, and that closes the first kind of official album, if you like, by Diamond Head, a re-recorded version of it. But the track that closes the White Album is called Helpless, a song that Metallica covered as well, which is an amazing hard rock song and a tremendous way to close off that album. At number 11, gone with a band who really knew how to close an album, and I nearly chose Into the Void by Black Sabbath from their third album, Master of Reality. Into the Void is so heavy, the riff on it is just brilliant. But in the end, I went with a track from an album that is often disregarded, and rightfully so. It's a kind of a mixed bag of songs, I think. The album is called Technical Ecstasy by Black Sabbath, that came out in, what, 75. But the song that closes this is Dirty Women, which is one of my favourite Sabbath songs. It's got some brilliant guitar work from Tony Iommi, absolutely tremendous. Talking of brilliant guitar work, at number 10, well, of course, one of the most influential guitarists of all time has got to have a brilliant closer. And on this album, Electric Ladyland, he has Voodoo Child Slight Return, his very famous song with that wah-wah guitar, brilliant. The first band I ever saw is at number 9. And it's Status Quo, and I nearly chose Mystery Song from Blue For You, which is a brilliant way to close off what is a good album. I also nearly chose 4,500 Times from Hello, which is nearly 10 minutes long. I think it's about 16 minutes long on the live version, but in the end I went with the album that they were promoting when I saw them, not because it's that album, it's just got one of my favourite Quo songs that closes. It's from the album Quo from 74, and it's called Slow Train, which has got a kind of a little bit of a Gaelic part to it as well. It's even got a drum solo, which, you know, if you watch the channel regularly, you know how much I hate those. But even the drum solo, and it's brilliant. But Slow Train, one of my favourite Quo songs. What a way to finish. Next band are another band that also know how to close off an album. So they even did a song on their separate album called In the End. And the album is Rush. I saw them several times live. I saw them on the Farewell to Kings tour, which is the first time I ever saw them. And the track that closes this album, Cygnus X1, is a great way to close off that album. As is, I think, one of their greatest songs, which is La Via Strangiata, an instrumental that showcases the musical brilliance of this band, especially the guitar player Alex Lifeson, who also, his work is also showcased on the final track from their debut album, so the version of the band that doesn't feature Neil Peart. And the track Working Man that closes off the album, I think, is the last song they played live. It's just brilliant, and I think we should be talking about Alex Lifeson in the same breath as Page, Clapton, Beck, maybe not Beck, but certainly, you know, Blackmore, people like that. I think Alex Lifeson is just a brilliant guitarist, and the guitar work on Working Man is tremendous. Okay, number 7. This is a band I've seen 5 times in different incarnations of the band, and they've got a couple of really good closers. I nearly went with Emerald by Thin Lizzy from Jailbreak. This is their best album, I personally think. This is the album with Jailbreak. It's got Warriors, it's got The Boys Are Back in Town, Cowboy Song, but Emerald is a tremendous way to close off the album. I think, though, Emerald could have gone anywhere on the album and still be brilliant. I don't know if that's the same for the epic Black Rose from this version of Thin Lizzy that featured Gary Moore. I saw this band, oh, that's Gary Moore there. I saw this band live, although it didn't have Brian Downey, it was Mark Morseef drumming that night, and they did Black Rose. Absolutely out of this world. What a way to close off the album. Again, it's got that Gaelic kind of influence on it. The guitar work by Gary Moore on that song, one of his signature songs, just insane level of ability. Brilliant way to finish the album. So we're in the top 5 now, so who's missing? Who would you include? So the next band is a band I saw a couple of times, 4 times live. My favourite version of the band are the version with Bon Scott. Of course, it's AC/DC. This is probably my favourite album by them. And the closing track, Kicked in the Teeth, is an utterly exhausting listen. It's so heavy. Guitar work is brilliant. The vocals are brilliant. The rhythm section, just off the chart. It's fantastic. But I think the closing track from the album that came before it just edges it. This is Let There Be Rock, an album that sounds like it's recorded live. You can almost hear the buzz of the amps when you put the needle on the record. The closing track, one of their famous tracks from AC/DC, of course, it's Whole Lotta Rosie. I prefer it to the live version. I think guitar work is just incredible. It's just a breathtaking song, and in many ways could easily be my number 1 as a closing track, but there are 4 songs ahead of it. Now, in 4th place are this band, The Doors. This is their album LA Woman, and you know they are so distinctive, The Doors, and that's probably down to Ray Manzarek on the organ, but also, of course, Jim Morrison's vocals. And Riders on the Storm, one of their most famous songs, is a tremendous way to close off an album. But really, The End has got to be one of the greatest closing songs of all time. I remember this song from Apocalypse Now, which probably makes it even more kind of profound. But what a way to close the album. It's a long song. It's about 11 minutes long or so, nearly 12 minutes, I think. Just brilliant. It's so atmospheric. It's just incredible. Possibly the greatest closing song of all time, but the three above it are three of my favourite songs of all time, and they just happen to close the albums of these three. So here's my top three, and in third place it's the closing song from Secret Treaties by Blue Oyster Cult, my favourite album by this band. I love this band, saw them live in '78, they were brilliant. And the track that closes one of my favourite songs by them, in fact it's one of my favourite hard rock songs, one of my favourite songs, Astronomy. I just think that song is brilliant. It probably could be anywhere on the album, it's so good, but it's a brilliant way to close the album. Tremendous stuff. The next song couldn't be anywhere else other than at the end. This is a song I'll probably have at my funeral, and it's Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd from their debut, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. Freebird, of course, has that epic guitar work at the end. I think I prefer maybe the version of it that's on the Muscle Shoals original album, which got a piano start and a slightly shorter solo. I prefer the studio version to the live version. I think it's overly long, but Freebird, wow, what a way to close the album. Just incredible. And at number one is a song that closes an album, which is one of my favourite albums of all time. And the interesting thing about this song is it follows an absolutely epic song. And it's incredibly difficult to follow an epic song with another epic song. But Rainbow manage it on Rainbow Rising. So on side 2 of this album, one of the most perfect albums of all time, in my opinion, we've got Stargazer. How do you follow that? Well, you follow that with Light in the Black, which is just, I think, one of the pinnacles of this band. The vocals on this album by Ronnie James Dio, the best he's ever sounded. The rhythm section, Jimmy Bain, and especially Cozy Powell, especially on Light in the Black. Oh, it's just brilliant. The double bass, the driving drums of it. No wonder they didn't play it very often live. It must have been exhausting. The guitar work, of course, from Richie Blackmore is brilliant, but the keyboard work from Tony Carey on it is tremendous. They should have kept him in the band. But that is my favourite closing song on pretty much any album of any genre. So there you go. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and I'm sure I'll be back sometime soon with another video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.